So I'm using as my shutter speed 1250 f8. Could lower to 1000 the shutter speed because it's not moving super fast. And right now it's gone.
My name is Nicole, I'm 27 years old, and I'm a professional wildlife photographer and guide from Brazil. So today we're gonna go to the Atlantic forest, which is a small preserved area close to São Paulo, and we're gonna search for birds.
I'm going to try and take photos of some different birds. Then I will show you how I capture and how I edit them. So I brought two bodies of cameras, my Z7 to use with my 180-600mm lens, and also since I know it will be a little dark to photograph, I brought the 400 fixed lens 2.8 f, and that's it, pretty much it. So right now let's go and see what nature has to show us. So our first challenge was to see the toucan, and right there it is.
I really adore them. I think they are very symbolic of Brazil.
So right now I'm using f5 because there's not much light going on. Usually I tend to photograph at 8 for that sharpness, but this is the best we can do right now. Also I'm using as my shutter speed up to 1250, so maybe I can get a good shot, like a freeze shot of them flying, and also freeze the rain. For ISO, I'm using 5000, and in this moment I prefer having a good shot, like a freeze shot instead of a blurry one, so that's why I put the ISO high up. One thing that I always keep in mind is to not cut the tail when I'm shooting. Although it's a super big lens, this is something I always keep in mind. So right now I'm photographing vertical, so I won't lose the tail. Yeah, so this one for me is the best one. This seems very beautiful. First of all, open the shadows. This might be interesting, I like this color here. Yeah, I still feel like I could put a mask, linear gradient coming this way to make everything balanced, to put a little more information in this place as well. Maybe like a radial gradient also. The eyes are really, really beautiful. You can see like the treetops in the reflection. If you notice, like I didn't do much to force the color, I just enhanced what is already there. This is always what I'm trying to do when I'm actually editing the final material that I'm gonna post. The focus is very sharp in the eyes and in this part of the feathers, and it tells like a real story. It shows the challenge of photographing with rain, but it brings more to the story because you can see the texture and the shine of the water. So for me, when I'm photographing birds, the most important thing is to focus on the eye. Having the focus right, I feel that I can have more detail and more texture to the photo. Oh, that's really nice one. So this is a good one. Like, it's kind of far away, but I'll be able to crop it. And like you see all the details, and also I really enjoy how the light is hitting its eye. Unbelievable. Right now I'm selecting the ones in focus, always look into the eyes of the animal. After I see the focus, searching for the super sharp eyes, I go to the behavior. Like this one is kind of interesting, but this one is even better. My work relies on color a lot, so bringing the colors that my eye saw in the moment I was shooting is one of the main things that stand out in my work. I'll start from the basics. So first of all, I try to put the highlights a little down because I don't like super bright. I like more information also from the background. Open just a little bit of the shadows. Bring the black, always watching if the black will be 100% black by my Instagram. Then maybe a little contrast to bring a little bit more, and then I use the exposure. So this is always what I'm trying to do when I'm editing. I'm not the type of person that do like crazy editing. It's just like keeping really sharp and good, and something that you look at and you think, oh my God, I never saw something so full of detail, you know? So this is the most important for me. So right now I'll go straight to the hummingbirds. Let's see if we got something interesting. Ooh, I think we have it. So one of the challenges that we have here is that they are super fast. So right now I'll put the ISO up, open a little bit my aperture, keep my shutter speed 1000. He got back. Beautiful. Let's see. Oh, we even got with the eye closed. Nice. I really like this. Oh, that's amazing. I always try to do this, like comparing side by side and going straight to the eye, 100% to actually see if it's focused. And you see right here, you can see the layers of the feathers way more sharpened than this one. So this one will be my favorite. So cute. I will do like a little mask in the subject to pop out even more. And I'm just gonna add just a tiny bit of black. I like to have something more contrast. I think it adds emotions to the shot.
Such a beautiful landscape. Amazing. If you want to be a wildlife photographer, you just got to go out and be able to photograph whatever you think is interesting.
I think it's beautiful. Bye.
You just got to be there and be open to see what nature gives to you.
This is very beautiful.
So it's very connected to this energy. It's not only about the shot, it's something therapeutic for me.
Looks like pitanga, but it's not. But very good smell. Love it. I had an amazing day. And despite the very challenging weather conditions, with low light, heavy rain the whole time, I'm still really happy with the photos that I got.
I love when I just hit that perfect picture.
They make the craziest sounds.
Nope.
Hi, I'm Riley, and I'm a wildlife photographer.
Our main goal for the day is going to be heading to Lamar Valley, which is really the hub for wildlife activity, carnivores, bison, elk. So that's where we're shooting for the day.
I have my 1 to 400 millimeter lens, which is my go-to photography lens for wildlife. But I do also carry my 24 to 105 in the field as well for getting landscape shots. Binoculars, I would say, are also a must for wildlife photography for scoping out the landscape and trying to find your subjects. Bear spray, we're still early in the season, there's not a lot of snow, so there's always the possibility of running into grizzly or black bears here. All right, let's head out. We just saw a bull elk on the side of the road. Oh, there we go. Just lifted his head. The elk's still pretty far out. He's probably around 100 yards right now. I bumped my ISO up to 1250 to accommodate the lack of light that we have right now still. He's not really moving too much, so I'm also shooting at about 1/800. He's still just in the trees right now, so on we go. I'm coming up on a herd of bison, and with bison, you want to give them a wide berth, but in the winter, they're pretty much just focused on getting food and getting their nutrients in. I'm at F9 right now to get a lot of the landscape in this shot. 1/1250 for my shutter speed, and about 320 for my ISO, since it's pretty bright right now. What you don't really want to do in winter is overexpose your images, because it's a lot harder to bring down those highlights that are blown out than it is to bring back up shadows. I tried to get the horn in this picture as the main focus of the photo to accentuate the features, especially on this guy. He has some frost on his nose. You can see some of the frost on the hump behind the horn. I just found a coyote on the side of the road over here, somewhat far off, but it was moving our direction, so we're gonna try to see if we can get him. I think this will end up being one of my favorites of the day. I'm just reviewing the coyote photos that I just got. I like this photo just because the coyote stands out so much against the snow and against the dark bison. This also paints a story of Yellowstone where multiple species can coexist together in the same environment. So I like this shot in particular, or one of the series of these shots. So this is a common raven. They're so intelligent. Oh, and this guy actually has a little GPS backpack on him. So the park put the backpacks on them to see where they go. I'm trying to get the most ground level shot of him possible, or trying to even get under him. So I'm switching to high speed continuous shooting because I want to get his nictitating membrane. It's basically like a blue eyelid, and it helps protect their eyes from snow and debris. And it looks really fascinating in pictures. And I think I have got a couple of them already, which is just what I wanted. I'm moving back to single shooting since he's a little bit more calm now. But I'm still trying to get some of the open beak shots. I also swear ravens know what I'm talking about, because right as I said I wanted an open beak shot, he started mumbling more.
I think we got a lot of great shots today.
Let's see what we got. It seems like as I'm going through these raven pictures, the further on I go, the better they become. Ooh, this one's nice. I love when I just hit that perfect picture. So I think what I'm gonna do is edit this picture the way I want it to. All right, so I just bumped up some shadows and bumped up the contrast on this to bring some of those blacks back. One thing I like to do, especially on dark animals, is really accentuate the facial features on this. So I really like these ruffled feathers right under her chin, and I feel like those could be just a little bit brighter. So I'm just gonna select all of those and increase the whites on those. There we go. Because my goal for the day was to really highlight that nictitating membrane, I'm gonna zoom in and just accentuate the blues on this just a smidge. Highlight the whole eye, and then I'm just gonna bump saturation ever so slightly. I don't want it to look unrealistic, but I do want the colors to stand out, and I want that to be the first thing that draws people into this photo. I'm also gonna increase the whites a bit to brighten it up. And then let's say it looks a little too bright. Let's increase contrast to bring out the veins in that nictitating membrane. And then you can see, flip back and forth and see how it looks before and after. I really like that blue, so I'm gonna leave it alone now.
Photography can really be as simple as you want it to be. It can be just in your own backyard or around your own neighborhood. I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give to people who want to get started in wildlife photography is to really just invest your time into the craft. The more time you dedicate to learning about your settings and learning about your camera and how to line up shots and how to get creative with what you're photographing, the better photographer you'll become.
What I look for in pictures which I intend to keep are interesting elements and their connection, which takes my attention and which evokes a feeling. I'm Manu Alicki, I'm 39, I'm a wildlife photographer from Budapest, Hungary. Today, I'm going to photograph long-eared owls in central Hungary, and I talk you through how I take the photos and edit them. Firstly, we go to a town called Turkeve, the long-eared owl capital of Hungary. Okay, so we're pulling into the parking lot, and I think I already see some owls. Yep, there they are. Okay, let's talk about some gear. Today, my main rig is gonna be a full-frame mirrorless body equipped with the 2 to 600 telelens. I'm gonna have a very sturdy carbon fiber tripod with a leveling head and a fluid head. Besides the photographic equipment, what is very important is to have a pair of good binoculars. It is very useful to spot wildlife, especially here where the owls hide in the thick foliage of evergreen trees. So there's a long-eared owl roosting on the tree, looking at us with a pair of red eyes. So talking about settings here, I use auto ISO, so sensitivity is set by the camera. So with this, I can control depth of field. With the aperture, closing the aperture increases depth of field, and I can control how motion is rendered on the image with the shutter speed. So here it's a bit dark, so I decreased my shutter speed so I can get a clearer, nicer exposition. Composition-wise, it's very hard to shoot these owls because the dense branches obstruct the view of the animals several times, but we can use this for our advantage. For example, creating a frame inside a frame, and this can emphasize our subject within the image. That's what I try to do here. It's getting a bit chilly here in Turkeve. It's good to have a camo cover on the lens because it warms it up a little bit, and also it gives nice protection, and also it covers the white color of the lens, so it's harder to get noticed when I'm shooting wildlife. I'm locking on this owl right now. I'm a bit underexposing the image, and I'm going for more like a silhouette-like look of the owl. For the silhouette shot, I open the aperture to decrease depth of field and use a fast shutter speed to ensure I get a shot in focus. This I can further enhance in post-processing. What I look for in pictures which I intend to keep are interesting picture elements and their connection, which takes my attention and which evokes a feeling. These are the pictures which I consider good and I can work on later. This is pretty much representing what we see while we are walking around in Turkeve and Kisújszállás, because sometimes we only see the silhouettes of the owls. And I think I underexposed this image, but I'm gonna increase the contrast so I give it a silhouette look. I'm definitely taking in the blacks and the shadows. I don't really wanna turn into black and white because I like that it has a brownish hue here around. I try to emphasize the monochromatic look with increasing contrast as much as I can. The old silhouette is very definitive. I like that there's a nice diagonal shape to it with this branch. Yeah, I like it like this. It's very obvious that we have a long-eared owl here because we see the silhouette with the tufts. I like the triangular composition of the picture and the lines which are directing our view towards the silhouette of the owl and the monochromatic look. So we are here at Kisújszállás, and I've prepared my equipment for the shot at dusk when the owls will fly out from next to the beautiful church here. So I have my camera here and I switch lenses to a 24 to 105 f4, and I'm gonna use it on the wide end to get a nice wide angle shot from below. I'm gonna use an off-camera flash to light the owls, which I'm gonna trigger with my wireless trigger here. I'm gonna trigger everything further away, not to be there and scare the owls. Okay. So I use a smartphone app to determine the hyperfocal distance, which I can set with manual focus on my camera. So if setting for the hyperfocal distance, that's pretty much the shortest distance while the infinity is still in focus. So this is really handy to determine where to focus with a subject which you don't know where will be in the shot. So the shot is a bit tricky with the settings because it's dark. It's gonna be darker, so light will change and I don't know where the owls will be. So this pretty much sets everything up. I'm gonna use a very narrow aperture, f11, because that gives me larger depth of field, so wherever the owls will end up in my shot, they're gonna be in focus. I'm gonna have my ISO at pretty high, at 6400, so it gives a very sensitive sensor, so I'm gonna be able to use shorter shutter speeds during my shoot. I'm gonna think that the flash will light up at the end of my exposition. So ideally, when owls fly out, they're gonna pull a little light line while they fly during the long exposure, and at the end, the flash will light them up and freeze the action. Okay, I think this is a pretty good shot. I think this light here from the long exposure looks pretty nice. And the position of the owl is okay. I think it's small, but it's in focus. So yeah, I think I'm gonna develop this. So I think this is good because it communicates what's happening here, that the owls are flying out from the tree. Here's the church, so I think I can work with this. This is a bit too cold for my taste. It doesn't really give the dusk feel to it. I'm gonna emphasize it with pulling down exposure a little bit and increasing. Yeah, sky is much nicer like this. I'm gonna use a tighter crop, something like this. Let's see a before and after. Yeah, I think it pops. Even if there's less detail in the tree here, I think that's not really the point to emphasize that, but emphasize the connection between the owl and the environment. So I think this is cool. What I like is that there is a strong triangular composition of the church, which is drawing the eye. It's very obvious that the owl is flying out from the tree next to the church. I like the yellow and the blue, which are complementary colors. I think the owl falls pretty much at the same spot as the top of the tower, which is always giving a good balance to the pictures. I'm really happy with the shots I got today. I think these images point out how wildlife can take advantage of human environment to survive and can peacefully coexist with us.
I think it's hard to judge when exactly you're gonna get the money shot. This lens might be too much zoom. I'll try to see if I can get some pictures. I'm Kalyan Verma and I'm a wildlife photographer from Bangalore, India. Today, we're going to explore an area called Valparai in the Western Ghats in search of the endangered lion-tailed macaque and other endemic wildlife. I'll take you through how I take these photos and what I do to edit them. So this is my typical kit when I go out photographing. I primarily use a zoom lens with a mirrorless camera. These mirrorless cameras are great because they're much smaller to carry around. This is a 200mm to 600mm zoom, which is great because I can shoot both mammals with it at 200mm, but when I want to shoot birds as well, I can go all the way up to 600mm. Along with it, I have the 70 to 200mm lens. The aperture is f2.8. What it basically means is that I can shoot in lower lights, but I also get this beautiful, nice blurred background when I'm doing portraits. But along with it, I carry a basic wide-angle lens for landscape shots that I need anywhere. This is a 16 to 35mm lens. And there we go, we're ready to go. What I'm really looking for are some rare primates here, which can only be found in this stretch. They're usually up in the canopy, but there's one place up here where they come down quite often and quite habituated to people. It's not ideal for me. I would have loved to photograph them in beautiful rainforest, but this is the reality. So I'm gonna see if I can get some pictures which depicts this. This is quite disturbing here. These macaques are eating from a trash and there's a lot of plastic here. One of the things as a photographer you learn is that sometimes the best camera is the one that's easily available for you. So right now I don't have a wide angle lens, but I do have my mobile, so I'm going to try to see if I can get some shots showing this plastic pollution and these endangered primates with them. One of the things about mobile phones these days is that just like your big cameras, you can shoot in RAW mode. So although the pictures look all right, I know I can edit these pictures later.
I need to make sure the focus stays on the macaque. The dark body of these macaques throws the exposure off, but I can adjust that on my phone.
I know these are not the prettiest pictures, but I think these pictures will have an impact. And people say they'll want to do something about it. This one's with a bright piece of plastic. I just love it when these monkeys are funny, playing around. I'm trying to get a shutter speed of 1/1000 or faster, so I can get shots like this where it's hanging and it's sharp. And when the action's going on, all these cameras have burst mode, which takes about 10 pictures per second. It's hard to judge when exactly you're gonna get the money shot, but I have over a dozen pictures here, so I'm sure one of them is good. I will have to see them at the computer and then figure out which one's the best one. A lot of times you don't know what you've captured, so I can't wait to look at these images. Wow, this beautiful lion-tailed macaques. I love this light that's falling on them. I think when you're shooting portraits especially, I think it's the eyes really need to stand out. Oh, I really love this cheeky pose. I think that's one of my favorites. These are not some of the prettiest images, but I think for me it's a very strong conservation message. These are highly endangered primates, less than 4,000 of them left in the wild, but they are consuming plastic. You know, their habitats are degrading, and for me, having a jar of something which are very bright colored against this light colored monkey, I find that quite interesting. I'm increasing the exposure and contrast to brighten the image. Then I'm adjusting the temperature to make it warmer. I want to see more detail in dark areas, so I'm lifting the shadows. Yeah, that looks quite a big change. I mean, it looked quite dull, and I like the warm tone in this image, which is looking really well. Just got news that there are a bunch of elephants out in the teeth. Let's go get some shots. Wow, this beautiful female. I'm just waiting for this female to come to the right position. So I can't go any closer, it's quite unsafe as well. So I'm just going to wait it out for this female, see if she gives a better pose. I really love the way this elephant image has turned out. Because of the fast shutter speed, I can see all those dust stones up in the air. Oh! I did get when it was throwing some mud on itself. Wow. So let me pick the best image out there. Yeah, this clearly needs some editing, so I'll go to editing mode. Reduce the brightness, increase the contrast. Well, that really makes the image pop. And with this I can compare how it looks before and after. It's a beautiful portrait. I love this one. Oh, look at that. All these gaur are coming down there. They're feeding on the grass. And I want to get some nice portraits of them. So I'm going to try to go closer. I also feel that this lens might be too much zoom to get good portraits of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm also carrying my 70-200 lens. So that will be useful in just getting slightly wider shots. But we'll go and find out. That's pretty big herd of gaur there, and they're a bit too comfortable with me, and I'm only getting the back sides. What I'm trying to get is really nice portrait. So it's a matter of stalking them, going as close as possible, but they're actually spooking them. And if one or two of them look at me, I'll get a nice eye level shot. It's very dark, the light's quite less, so I'm going to bump up my ISO. which essentially increases the sensitivity. I can get a nice shutter speed even in this light. Oh, beautiful. This one looks quite beautiful. Come on, look at me. Lovely. I like those multiple shots of this bull gore I got. And let me edit this image. I don't like this blue, so I'm gonna pump up the white balance. What it really does, it makes it look much more warmer and much more day-like. Pump up the contrast a bit. Exposure. Some of the shadow details I want to come out. So there's a lot of back and forth. Sometimes you change one, something else changes. So figuring out what really works. That looks great. That definitely is a keeper for me.
Valparai is a home away from home for me. I love coming here to connect with nature and see these animals that don't exist anywhere else on the planet. For me, that's what photography is all about.
If you can just keep your creativity flowing and keep an open mind about what you're getting, that's when you become a great photographer, I think. I think I got it. So pretty.
I love it.
I always miss the coast. Hi, my name is Hallie Calumbarera, and I'm a wildlife photographer. I'm headed to Spring Island, South Carolina today, and I'm gonna give you some tips on photographing the local wildlife and walk you through how I edit my images to get that perfect shot. So now let's go through my kit and see what I'll be using today. My camera is a Micro Four Thirds, which is an in-between of a DSLR and a mirrorless. On my camera, I have my favorite lens. It's a wide-angle macro, so I can still get really close to my subject while getting a lot of its habitat. And it's an 8 to 25 millimeter. And then I have my macro. It's a fixed lens, which means it doesn't zoom in or out. It's a 60 millimeter. So I can get pretty close to my subjects, and this is what I'll use most of the time if I want to get a detail on an animal, like the eye or its scales or its skin. One of my most important pieces of equipment, which is my flash. It's one of those things that is really cheap and does make a big difference for photography, especially macro photography. All right, let's go see what we can find. We're gonna be flipping this board. Usually snakes will be under these because they're trying to find like little rodents and other things that might be underneath to feed on, because it's a good hiding place, and also because it's nice and warm in the sun. That metal is conducting heat.
Look at that.
Oh, it's so
Beautiful.
pretty.
You gonna get that one?
Handling wildlife is not something you want to do unless you're properly qualified and have a reason to do so. We handle the snakes on Spring Island for research purposes and sometimes for outreach. We know how to do it without causing the animals distress. So this is a corn snake, native to the southeast US. So right now I'm setting my f-stop higher, shutter speed at around like 1/320. Shutter speed is how long you're actually taking the photo for. So even though it says 320 on my camera, it's actually 1/320, and it's 320th of a second. And for this, I want the diffuser like very close to the head. So the f-stop is like how much light gets let into the camera, but it also affects the focal plane. So the higher the number, the larger your focal plane. So the more that will be in focus. So a lower number allows for more blur, and a wider aperture allows for a larger focal plane. So like I said, if I wanted the eye and the nose in focus, I might open up that focal plane and make sure it's parallel so that I can get that. Yeah, that's nice. I almost never buy things new. Like, you don't need all this high-tech stuff, like buying like a $5,000 camera with like a $6,000 lens. Photography is more about making teeny tiny adjustments that make the final image amazing.
There's a black widow right here. I'm
Oh,
gonna try to photograph that.
so here we have a black widow. It's a species of venomous spider. I'll usually try to get close, but with this macro, I don't need to get too close, which is really nice. Like the wide angle, you kind of have to get really close. It also is kind of difficult with all this stuff in front of it to focus and get that face. So I put the f-stop down so that I can see it. And then I'm gonna raise it back up before I actually take the photo so that my flash will light it up and it's not too bright, and hope for the best. It might be escaping. I think we got something. Actually, let me get one on that thing and then we can let it go. I think I got it. Yeah, you're chilling. It's not my favorite photo I've ever taken of a spider, but I do really like how we have its body in focus. And I think that all the pine needles and grass in front of it is interesting. I use a custom ratio. I'll leave it at 4:3. It's good to think about which way your animal is like facing in your frame. So in this case, the spider's like a little bit facing inwards. Usually you want your animals facing into the image. So like if they're on an edge, you want them facing in, not towards the edge of the image. Playing with the saturation a little bit and seeing what that does, because it's a lot of grays and not a ton of color, but we do have like some color in that grass, and I think it adds a nice element to brighten that a little bit. Same with on the spider here. I don't think I'm gonna do anything else to this image. I think this one's good as well. Did you catch it? Look at you guys. Oh, he's cute. Yeah, I'm gonna try to take a head shot of it. We're photographing a skink. It's really tiny, so we're gonna have to get really close to it. And again, using the flash to fill in those shadows and have more control of the light. So I'm switching back to the fixed macro lens again, just so I can get a really up close focus shot of the head. And for reference, 60 millimeters is kind of similar to the angle we see, because the human eye sees at around 50 millimeters. Oh, that's nice. With this skink, it's a portrait, so I really want the details on the face to pop. That's really what I'm gonna focus on, especially that shine there, because I don't want that to distract too much from the details of the scales on its face or the eye. So I'm going to brighten it, play with the contrast a little bit. I'm looking at this blue. I think I will darken it a little bit. It really draws more attention to the face, which is what we want. I'm just gonna crop it a little bit because there's a little, I don't even know what it is in the corner. It might be my finger, and get rid of some of that dead space on the other side. This image is done. I like the colors. There you go. I feel like I always go into a shoot thinking, okay, this is the kind of image I want, and it almost never becomes my best shot. A lot of times I will try to get a wide angle with the head very close to the lens. Most of the time that just doesn't happen because they're animals, they move. There's elements we can't control, but if you can just like keep your creativity flowing and keep an open mind about what you're getting, that's when you become a great photographer, I think.
The ocean has its own wonders. And that's why I keep on going back. My name is Anthony Chingonyango. I am a wildlife photographer from Nairobi in Kenya. Today, we are going to Kisite Mpungute Marine National Park to photograph some of the incredible sea life there. I'll talk you through how I take the photos and also how I edit them. So today I brought myself an R5 camera. I'm going to be focusing on wide underwater photography. Underwater photography has like two types of variety. So you can either shoot wide images or you can shoot macro. So I'm going to be using the 11-16 lens. And definitely you can't go underwater without a housing. You need to protect your camera. So I have myself a housing that I'm going to be using. And then just to add some bit of light, because light really makes that image pops up. I'm going to be using 2 strobes on the side, and the light just adds the color. So when you go deeper, the color many turns into blue, so other colors disappear, but the light returns at the beauty of the color. So for those who are beginning in photography, what I'd advise is you can start with a phone, and on the phone you can buy a housing, and definitely just be able to snorkel and take nice images of corals and any fish you find. Once you've rigged everything, put them together, the arms, the strobes, the camera is inside, well secured, and then finally we'll have a nice camera where you have now it's safe and secure, and then now you can go underwater. So let's go dive and see what we can get today. I need to always have my dive buddy because underwater you're not allowed to dive without a buddy. So we are now heading out to Pungute, which is Marine National Park, and it's one of the blue spots along the Indian Ocean coast from the Kenya side. Taking those images is just how creative can you take an image to show the beauty of the coral in that particular state as much as they're bleached. So I did a couple of images. It was really challenging at some point where I had to make sure that my lights are in the same position to avoid backscatter. Backscatter is basically the spots you get on your image underwater, especially for the lights, because in water there are so many planktons that are moving. So if any source of light hits those particular planktons, they'll be there on your images. So I did like 1, 2, 3 shots, and then after that, when I realized there was backscatter on a couple of images, decided to like move the lights back just to make sure I have a nice image. Once I got it right, I went ahead and just shoot quite a number of fish. And I spent quite a lot of time just making sure that I have nice images across that particular site. When editing an image, I like to use a light touch to lift the image slightly so that it best represents what I saw in the ocean. Now, the big fish image is beautiful, so I'm just going to zoom in so you can see it. And you see the way they've actually clustered them together, so I felt it was nice to have like a bit of behavior. I'm actually cropping. The camera I'm using, it has a high megapixel, so it's easier for me to crop and just bring in the details. As you can see, they're a bit overexposed, so I'm going to reduce the exposure, pump up the contrast to bring in the colors out, especially for the red-eyed fish. And then if you see the way the highlights affect the fish itself, and then I'll reduce the shadows, and you can see the lines of the fish, the details of the fish, and the silvery feel of the big-eyed fish. So I'm always looking at my histogram, just to make sure that I don't do any peaking of any of the colors and to make sure they are all right or in the center. I do a bit of the blacks. And I love my images with a bit of clarity. And I try as much as possible and keep them in a natural state. So always just play around with it and even find a way to do like a nice white balance just to have the colors pop out. This is my final image. I think I love it just the way it is. So this is before and this is after. And just beautiful, even seeing you guys dive and take pictures of the dive master. It was just interesting. Yeah, you can look at them, it was beautiful. That's a nice shot. Wow. So this is also, we see like for this particular image, for this particular coral, it was small and I had to go down and then use the natural light to create like a shadow around it. So just to make it make here. And this was also beautiful. Sometimes when you're underwater, you can actually be able to use the backdrop of the top of the ocean to just make it look much more beautiful. When you're shooting underwater, you can get different angles from above, from below. As much as this coral is dead, there's still life of fish around it. So what I'm going to do is the contrast and then reduce the highlights. And then the shadow just helps me bring back light into this particular region. And then I play with the whites. I just love the way the whites just change the glare of the light from the sun from above. And then just increase it a bit with the exposure. Voila! Very simple, very straight to the point. Underwater photography can be incredibly challenging, especially sometimes when there are very strong currents. And when there are strong currents, it's difficult to stay still in that particular position for you to take the picture. The other challenge is sediments in water that are suspended that will make the visibility difficult and make your pictures murky. And then there's the aspect of temperature. When it is so cold underwater, you can imagine how difficult it is to even just handle your camera and makes your dive shorter. We are still not so deep and there was light coming through, so you can able to just reduce the shutter speed a bit. If you look at the settings, I was using like f8 with a shutter speed of 1 to 200 and the ISO was 320. So on this image, we have a surgeon fish and a sweet flips fish, and I just love it because of the colors, the yellow of the sweet flip and the black of the surgeon fish. And the reason why this surgeon fish is actually here is because this coral is dead, and when it's dead, algae tends to grow on top of it, so they feed on the algae. I'll reduce the exposure and then over the contrast, you can bring in the yellows and the colors back, and then play around with the highlight and the shadow and the white. Might just a bit of clarity, and then the texture, and then saturation thereabout. And I'm gonna crop it, and then we have before, and this is after. So these are the images of today. I just love the way they came out because one, there is no backscatter, it was clear, and you can even see the beautiful corals and the fish. So yes, I can't wait to share them online and talk about this particular place and how important it is in the conservation of marine ecosystems in Kenya. For me, the ocean is always like a puller because I don't know what I'll find underwater. And that's why I keep on going back. The ocean has its own wonders, and photography is a better tool to tell those stories.